Good day, dear friends. Two stories we're going to be talking about, which are very, very interesting. One, I just did a video on the Luigi Mangione case and explaining what that is and is not about, and also why Tyler Robinson is in absolute grave danger. I don't say that lightly. I don't say that for dramatic effect. I say it because it's true. Get ready, buckle up, but first, a word from our sponsor. My friends, this is bigger than most people realize. While everyone watches missiles and fighter jets, the real battle is happening in the supply chain. Nearly every advanced U.S. weapon system depends on tungsten, yet America has barely mined it domestically in years, while China dominates global supply. Washington is now racing to fix that. The Pentagon has committed millions toward restarting domestic tungsten production, and President Donald Trump's Project Vault initiative launched a $12 billion critical mineral strategy to secure American supply chains. That's where Vault Strategic Mining comes in. Trading as KNOX in Canada and KNXFF in the U.S., Vault is building a strategic tungsten portfolio anchored by historic Nevada projects tied to past U.S. defense production. With tungsten prices climbing and global tensions rising, this is no longer just mining, it is national security. Check out the link below to learn more, and special thanks to Vault Strategic Mining for sponsoring today's video. All right, my friends, a couple of things here. This is big stuff. First and foremost, this came in today, a ruling in the Luigi Mangione case, which I will explain to you. Just did a brand new video on it. I hope you watch that. And also how we've got to get very, very serious about Tyler Robinson. And just without don't even know where to start. But first, an interesting study in contrast I find interesting. First, in the Luigi Mangione case, he is absolutely, positively, 100% guilty. He did this. He did this. Nobody else. There's no doubt about it. It's not who did it. It's, can they find some type of a procedural kerfuffle that might be able to maybe perhaps get some evidence suppressed or something? But be not mistaken. He did it. And this is really one of the most fascinating cases. So there is, I should say. And what's really interesting about all of this is that people sometimes forget kind of how things work. And I try to tell people this, I try to remind people of this, that for the most part, we pretty much know kind of who did what. In the case of Tyler Robinson, we don't know who did it. Now, this may drive people crazy, people all of a sudden, because I think they think Tyler Robinson is somehow connected maybe to Candace or something, or I don't know. Or that, I don't know why. Why they're so connected to this, I have literally no idea. But he absolutely, positively, without a doubt, was responsible for this. And what's really interesting to note as well, what is the most critical, most important, is that they're going to suppress the evidence from, and there were two different searches. One was the backpack, or what was on him at the time, and then later on there was an inventory search. But guess what stays in the evidence? The 3D ghost with the printing handgun, the manifesto, which specifically spells out the intent, and I think some other matter. So yes, it was suppressed, but it doesn't really matter. There will be no death penalty in the state of New York. There will be no death penalty in the federal courts, because remember, there's a concurrent jurisdiction in federal court. They threw out the terrorism part of it because it's difficult for people to understand whether this was terroristic, whether he was Was he trying to make a statement about, the healthcare industry, or was he doing this just because he had a beef against this person? Who knows? So I've got no problem with that. The bottom line is they're going to put all their money into the sentencing. He did it. There's nothing that anybody can possibly say. There's no defense. Tyler Robinson is a different story. And they talk about him as though it's a case is open and shut. Now, let me just remind you of something, and I think you know this. Just because something is, quote, open and shut, doesn't mean it's smooth sailing for everybody. Doesn't work like that necessarily. Just because doesn't mean it's smooth sailing. It doesn't mean it's smooth sailing. It doesn't mean that everything's groovy, everything's terrific. But very rarely do we have something as obvious as this. Stephen Salty, by the way, says, stay groovy. Lionel and Lynn Love. Thank you, my friend. Look at him. By the way, this also, we're going to get a lot of our UK crowd, which was so terrific Sunday. I want to make sure we do this. I think this is a great time. We'll do our regular stuff because I love the difference in a feel as to a live show versus something that's recorded. I mean, they're both fun, but this has a different. So give me a live audience, and I just appreciate it more. So thank you, my friends. The question they're going to have to say at that particular point is, ladies and gentlemen, we may feel that we have some kind of a beef against all kinds of folks. I have a real problem with people who make potato chips or crisps, as they would say in the UK. You get a bag like this, it's half full. What is this? I'm tired of the treatment I get at banks or airlines. I'm tired of the rudeness, the discourtesy. But to take somebody out, and also you're going to find this guy annoying because there's nothing noble about him. There's nothing noble. I don't even know if this guy I don't even know if this this insurance company even affected him. I know he had some problems with his back. I mean, it's such a tenuous, poorly connected, poorly strung reason for this. It's nuts. His only defense is to say he was crazy and work to God him and maybe lessening the sentence. In federal court, there's no parole. You do 85% of the sentence, and that's it. There's some kind of like, it used to be called gain time or, some incentives to cooperate. But for the most part, no, you are on your own, my friend. You are on your own. Now, the case of Tyler, and listen to me very, very carefully. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. If I was a member of the cabal, if I was a member of the bad guys, I'm going to say, gentlemen, ladies, he was not supposed to be here. As you know, based upon our initial choreography of this, we thought this would take a different cut, a different version, it would go differently. You know what I mean? I thought we thought a little differently. He would perhaps have been, shall we say, removed from consideration. G says, sending support and love from the Netherlands. I love this. Love the new streaming time. Listen to me, G Sizzle. Thank you. And you know what? We're going to do this. I feel I had no idea. What a wonderful group. What a wonderfully great, our European family. God bless you. So works for me. Works for me. I'm here for you. Okay. But what somebody's going to be saying was, and it will start as easy as this, and it's not going to be done in a group of people. It will be just done very, very quietly, almost understood. Look at this. We got Slovakia, Tennessee, Yorkshire, England. Honey, we got a veritable potpourri, a cascade, a cavalcade, a pastiche, a myriad, a mosaic, a veritable tsunami of European lovers of truth. This is incredible. Oh, Magic, I'm going to keep this time. Magic Rhonda says, keep this time. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Consider it done. I think noon works great. What is it, about 5-ish where you folks are? Got Wales, California, Yukon. This is beautiful. Washington. I still love that. I still love that. This is so. Trinidad and Tobago, make up your mind. Just kidding. Oh, Brooklyn. Paris. This is Ellen. I still have to go to Paris or France at some particular point. We're what you look at whilst flying from coast to coast. Indeed. I adore your vocabulary, eloquent execution. Thank you. Look at this from Germany. Danke. I think that's what you say. I think that's what you folks say. Lionel has a lovely white shirt. Thank you so much. This sounds like a beginning English class. UK. Keep this time, 5 p.m. Beautiful. Look at this. Bonnie Scott. Hi from Bonnie, Scotland, honey. Oh, got to go to, yeah. Dubai, Emirates. Incredible. This is going to spoil us. Thank you. No. Consider it done. Sunderland, UK. Greetings from Idaho. Oh, Idaho. Idaho, by the way, great song Idaho by the Bodines. Oslo, Norway. I'm windswept. I am beyond impressed by this. It's fascinating. So anyway, going back to what I was saying, if all of a sudden you said, well, one day, tragedy, breaking news, Tyler Robinson was found unresponsive in his cell. As you know, he was put on self-harm watch. That's the setup. Nobody will do any type of investigation. Any type of suspension ligature, which is the way they would that's the way you normally do it in cells, as in the case of Mr. Epstein. And people say, well, that's the way he was. He was crazy. Well, he had that girlfriend or boyfriend or trans, with the fuzzy hat. He was a nut. This is still incredible. Nottingham, Perth, Australia. Incredible. Anyway. So what's fast? Oh, by the way, please like this video. That's all I ask. Yes, a live cam on Tyler. Let me tell you about how this thing goes. This is very interesting. They have to. I do not see. First, I got to be very, very fair. I don't know anything about this defense team. I would do everything in my power to make sure that I would combine how do I say this? That I would combine everything that I did with social media and media. I would combine the two. This is something that people never had years ago, but they have now. And it's something which is very, very critical that people do this. I would say right off the bat that his life is in danger. By the way, here's that Luigi Mangione post. Just put it out minutes ago because it broke, whatever it was. I would say, ladies and gentlemen, my client is in grave danger because, as you know, there is little to no or any kind of connection whatsoever. He might have just been there. There is no evidence. Grainy photo of him on the roof might not be him at all. The gun, no connection. Lint brush, no connection to the site or the crime scene as well. Same thing with the gun. You could put a machine gun, a bazooka, a flintlock, a musket. It wouldn't matter. There's a good friend, Raul. Bless his heart. Raul is always there, always loyal. Dear. Greetings from Antarctica. Huh? My God. Now, as you know, if he were to be just all of a sudden dispatched, quelled, removed, expurgated, ablated, Baudelarized, so to speak, amputated from reality, and disappeared, it's over with. It's done. Period. End of discussion. And I would also be on all over social media. I would say, I talked to Tyler today. He is in the best of spirits, and he wants you to know that he is fully confident that this will end up in a disposition favorable to him. He is in no way contemplative of self-harm. In no way is he thinking about this. I'm just letting you know. That puts him on, say, uh-oh, that's the old, if anything happens to me. Let me tell you what they do in real life. If you are really somebody that they want to keep alive, really, I mean, really super duper, what you would do is you would probably have him immediately removed from the prison system itself in Utah. And you would go either to a different facility, maybe federal, maybe state, maybe a military base, maybe a hospital, maybe not even a jail or prison per se, but someplace where they can lock, where it's very secure, where he goes, and they would have constant surveillance. And the surveillance would have a camera. The surveillance would have a camera that would be, how do I say this? That would look for drops in temperature, drops in any type of rubescence, the heat that you normally give out, especially when you are either sick or something goes wrong. You would also be watched constantly. I want to say this in a way that is the most carefully done. It doesn't trigger anybody, but I want you to understand something. As in the case of that Epstein dude, when you involve yourself in your own dispatch, what is done and what people look for very simply is it's not a very complicated effort, but it's this area right here. Once this is compressed, anoxia, hypoxia, it's almost like ischemia, but it's manufactured. That's it. You just go nighty-night, it's a sleeper. Stephen Salt, he says, should change name to Lionel World Nation. I like that. Interesting. I think I don't want to change names. It's like one thing too is like it's like when you have a dog. All right. Don't change its name, and don't, especially in the case of a cat, don't change its litter box ever. But that's a very interesting point. So what happens is, in the case, do you remember Robin Williams? Do you remember Loren? This was Mick Jagger's. We drive by all the time. She lived in Chelsea, right there by the pier. We drive by all the time to see where she was found. In those particular cases, as in the case of Michael Hutchins and David Carradine, when people who use that kind of like autoeroticism, auto-asphyxia, you do not need the, the drop and all that. You just don't. When you see evidence, and this is what's critical, remember, it all comes down to physics, distance, medicine, examination. When you see the hyoid bone, look up the hyoid. It's the funkiest bone. It's just floating. It's not connected to anything. It's right there, right? Put your finger underneath your mandible, your jaw. Go all the way to the back as far as you can. There it is. And it's just there. And the only way you ever fracture it is in like a clothesline or like a serious auto accident, something really traumatic, or this. Anterior, posterior. That's how you get it. Not something that is wrapped around that. You know what I mean? It's a 64 degree Fahrenheit up here. Up where? Where is it? Where's up here? Thank you, Paul. Raul, rather. I don't want to go too much into the specifics, but in the case of Loren, the case of Robin Williams, there's none of this cervical stuff. Do you ever see, sometimes you've seen in cases where you've seen in cases where they have dispatched folks, and you might have, I think you might have even seen them in Iran, depending upon, like there's a turret or something, and they lift somebody up, but there's none of this stuff. So what I'm trying to do is I'm not trying to go into this specifics of this, but you have to understand what we're looking at. One of the reasons why I and other people, including Bobby Kennedy, have never believed the official story about Saran, or Saran, or Sarah, or Sirhan, Boutros Ghali. I like people with two names. Eddie Johnson. Okay. Is that there is a physical evidence. There was stippling, actual evidence of close contact that completely defies the story of Sirhan. It was across the room. That's a conspiracy. That's two or more people. He's over there. You're in Antarctica? My God. Raul, I had no idea. Thank you, sir. Everything comes into the specifics. I'm going to tell you a fact, which is the most important, the most critical. The one thing, if I walked into any courtroom and I'm trying to prove the existence of a conspiracy in the case of John Kennedy, there was a round, a bullet round, a hole, a pierce in the front windscreen, as you might say, or the windshield, as we'd say. Now understand something. Here's the car. Moving this way. This is JFK. It's going this way. Lee Harvey Oswald was back here, theoretically, going this way. All the activities back here. Why is there a bullet hole coming in from the front? And what did they do? They immediately took the car, sent the car up to some factory, transported it to some factory in Michigan or wherever it was, had the windshield replaced. This is evidence. This is a murder scene. Nobody knows this. That's the conspiracy. That is it. It has nothing to do with, and I watch these people sometimes, they talk about this. They have these JFK clubs and they say, well, the landlady, we actually, Marina Oswald, well, J.D. Tippett, the hell with J.D. Tippett. We don't care about that. We're talking about this. There's a bullet going. What are you talking about? They love to outdo you with, well, you probably don't know this, but Lee Harvey Oswald he didn't like pimento loaf. And how come there was a pimento loaf there? Or whatever it was. You don't need to get into this. Sometimes the most glaring. Do you know that Marilyn Monroe couldn't swallow a pill? Her housekeeper or assistant said she was notorious. She couldn't swallow a pill. And they claimed that she committed self-harm by swallowing God knows how many. It doesn't make any sense. None of it. This is critical stuff. It all comes down to evidence. It's just little things. And in the case of Tyler Robinson, they didn't connect any rifle. Nothing. Let me ask you something. What if, theoretically, during the case of the John Kennedy case, and Lee Harvey Oswald was up there. By the way, remember one thing which is interesting. The original rifle that they found in the sniper's nest said Mauser, as in the case of here of Tyler Robinson. It's a Mauser 98. This was a Mauser. Everybody in 1963 had been in the military. They had been in World War II. They knew all this stuff. They were involved. Every man was in the military, probably in some theater, Europe, Pacific. I mean, it was serious. So when you had somebody who had experience with a Mauser or reading the barrel, they did then. This is important. Look at this. I am down in Antarctica. The ice is free. And by the way, thank you for spelling it correctly. So what's interesting is that they said Mauser, then they changed it to Mannlicher Carcano. Okay, another one, but I'm going to get into that. Let me just go back. What if there was no rifle found? What if there was no rifle found? What if they said, hey, there's Lee Harvey Oswald? Uh-huh. He's over there. Uh-huh. Well, that's the guy, Fair Play for Cuba. That's the commie. Uh-huh. That's the one who's married to the Russian woman. Yeah. Well, he's working at the school book depository. Uh-huh. That would be a great spot shot, but there's no rifle. Uh-huh. If there was no rifle, there would be nothing to connect him. Okay? You agree? Of course. In the case of Tyler Robinson, there was nothing there. Nothing that connects. They could have left anything there. Why would Tyler take the rifle apart, go down this thing, and put it back together again? None of this makes any sense. There is no rifle. There is no connection. They will suppress, if there is any kind of rational juridical God out there, they will suppress it, meaning you cannot introduce it. And a motion in limine says you can't even mention it, which you normally do. You don't mention things, but just to double, be careful with these people. So you've got this guy, Tyler, and the jury's going to say, what do you have to do? Well, he confessed. Confessed to what? Well, he confessed to the thing. To the police? No. To his parents? Not really. Who did he confess to? Well, he confessed to his trans gay roommate, who, by the way, is going to have to testify. I hope this young man knows what can withstand some heat. So, wait a minute. Did he say he did it? Well, not really. Said he did what? That he was responsible. Responsible for what? The dispatch of Charlie. With what? How? Let's say, ready for this? Let's say, for what it's worth, let's say Ms. Dana, okay? Ms. Dana. She happened to be in Utah at the time. At the time this happens, she goes to the police station and says, I did it. I did it. Take me. You did what? I'm responsible for the elimination of Charlie. Take me. Well, how did you do it? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Just take me. They wouldn't have arrested him, or you, or Ms. Dana. They wouldn't have done it. She's confessing to the police. But the police would have even taken it. They would have said, we're not going to take this because do you know that there's always people who confess? Do you know that the time of the Lindbergh case was the biggest case maybe in the 20th century. People called the police all the time and said, I did it. Even though they knew it was going to be a death penalty case. This is nuts. The whole thing was crazy. So anyway, they would have said, no, you don't understand. I'm confessing to you. Give me the paper. I'll sign it. But yet, that wouldn't have done. They would have said, well, Miss Dana says she did it. I'm going to arrest her. No. But with Tyler, why are they confessing? What did he confess to? Because he wasn't supposed to be here. See, if there's no, for some reason he's not here anymore, anything you say, well, he was very upset with Charlie Kirk over things he said about the trans community because his girlfriend was trans and that's what motivated. Oh, really? Yep. How do you know that? Well, he said it. Now, if there's no Tyler there, you can say whatever you want. Well, there is a Tyler here. So now you can't say it. And if he were gone, all this would come to a complete and total end. We'll never know what happened. For example, what's in Charlie's neck? I'd get my experts in there. Look at it. What is it? Where's the round? Where's this 30-06? Where is this? Where is this titanium? You know the story, the titanium cervical collar. They said that his neck bones, his cervical vertebrae were so strong, and the bones were so strong because of his clean living, that the bone went in and went down to T1. It's just absurd. Absurd. One more time. This is a brand new video I did on no exit wound? No nothing? With what? And did you find any metallic fragments? No. Did you find any lead in it? No. Was it a frangible bullet? No. What did you find in there? What if they found hard plastic like Bakelite or something, who knows, some polymer, which goes back to this microphone or whatever it was. I want to say one thing too, which you have to kind of say. You have to kind of say this. Now, there is no evidence of anyone much more importantly, no evidence of Tyler whatsoever. None. Zero. None. So you can say anybody you want. But let's assume somebody were to say, could there have been some higher level co-conspirators, maybe from a country, maybe from people who have access to military and high-tech weapons? Maybe. In the case of certain countries, now let me just be very, very clear. I'm telling you, no indication of Erica, of the CIA, MI6, MI5, Mossad, Anan, nobody. But if somebody were to make the case, if somebody were to say, why would you think it would be somebody like Mossad? Not Mossad, but like them. To say, well, these folks were very, very good at, they like devices. Remember the beepers? Beepers that boom. Well, this is something interesting. This is something very, very interesting. It is alleged by some, though it never was followed through. Nobody ever, as far as I'm concerned. But they talk about these directional fragmenting. That would be something that a country would use. But then again, why would you want to use your high-tech stuff in front of everybody with cameras? Then we get into this problem. We always stop our analysis because we can't figure out why somebody would do this. Well, why would somebody do that? I don't know. Well, why? Oh, you'd have to be crazy to do that. Well, maybe you weren't crazy to do that. I don't know. But if there is a dream, two things I can only fantasize about. Number one is Erica and Candace in a 90-minute debate. No holds barred, no refs, no nothing. Inside the octagon, nobody leaves. No interruption, no nothing. You don't stop this until 90 minutes is up. That's number one. Number two, I would love to see Charlie. And of course, Charlie. I'm sorry. I forgive me, Trevor. Tyler. I would say, Tyler, listen. Tyler, you've heard this story that anybody who testifies has a fool for a client. Anybody who represents themselves, but anybody who testified, you always hear, you have nothing to lose here. I want to see how good he is. What is he like? What is his personality like? Did you do this? And if he says no, well, that's not what they said. I didn't say that. Wait a minute. They said you admitted it. I didn't admit to anything. What about that Discord thing? I didn't write that. Why am I so punctilious? Why am I so not priggish, but why am I so focused on all kinds of proper punctuation and why. Why is that? Why do you think that is? What's the purpose? Ireland. This one there for faith. That's the Mickey. Ah, for God's sake, fucking name. Anyway, thank you. Welcome. You see, these are the if he testifies and he looks at that jury and says, "I didn't do this." Oh, I was there. I don't know why I was there. Why? Somebody told me. Who knows why? Well, I was supposed to meet somebody there. Who? Somebody. What did you do? What were you, the Dairy Queen? Yeah, does that look like I was just involved in this stuff? I was up there and I heard the crack of the rifle and I thought, who's that? He's the only person ever to be pulled in to be bootstrapped into a conspiracy when he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. So this is, so understand, if he goes bye-bye, this is done. This is done. Erica. By the way, Fredo today, Daily Fredo was phenomenal. And I did not know this. And she did a review, changing the subject a little bit, of Candace, who at first was 100% behind Erica. 100%. And people were getting pissed at Candace. What are you talking about? He goes, no. Listen to her. She was a stalwart. She was, you've got to see this. It'll blow your mind. And who was the one who came out and suggested that she was accusing Erica of doing the dirty work? Ben Shapiro, that rat bastard. He is so done. Caterpillar Man is done. He's finished. He's through. And I say this again. Where is Laura Loomer? Where is she? When somebody stops, somebody got to them, somebody said, shut up, somebody said, whatever. I don't understand it. When all of a sudden you have these people stop doing things. There's so many, that's another ancillary aspect to this very complicated, labyrinthine, stratified, this concatenated, multi-layered. This story is just wild. There's the courts, there's the crime, there's the motivation. Who is it? Then there's the identity. Then there's just Erica. Oh, it's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal case. But I do believe very, very soon, going back to the Erica, you're not going to be seeing her much. You're not going to be seeing her. I am telling you, you're not going to be seeing her because she's done. She's finished. She's through. She doesn't serve any purpose. Do you hear what I'm saying? She doesn't serve any purpose any further, any longer. Absolutely, positively. She doesn't, there's nothing there anymore. She's finally exhausted herself. And watch, you're going to just see her less and less and less. And they're just going to say, let's just see what happens. And pretty soon they'll stop talking about her. And once she's out of the picture, things will die down. The TPUSA people will want more attention to be directed towards them, which is what this is. So the next thing is going to be, okay, the next focus is going to be obviously Tyler. Because remember, there's an interesting corollary here between Tyler and between Erica. If they're out of the picture, people stop talking about it. If there's no Tyler, if he's out of the picture, nobody talks about the case anymore. Nobody talks about who's responsible. Nobody talks about anything. And with that, nobody even talks about Charlie. You will never hear anything about Charlie again. You will never hear anything about him. Nothing. If the subject of his prosecution of the person who removed him is no more, is rendered moot by virtue of non-existence, there's no more discussion of him. No more pictures, no more reference, no more quotes, no more nothing. He is out of the picture. You will never hear from him again. Never. Nobody will talk about him. Nobody cares about him. His legacy snuffed out, unless Candace and others and you and I continue to remind people of that. But there's just no more. He doesn't exist anymore. That's the way it works. That's another reason why the elimination of Mr. Robinson might be beneficial to everything. It's over. What will we talk about? What? Everything you bring up. Yeah, but what about their rifle? Doesn't matter, it's moot. What about this? It doesn't matter, it's moot. And every now and then you're going to hear people who say things like, and I love this, Charlie's alive. This is like, I think people have these, people, let me go back a little bit. There were folks in our, not our group per se, but in our group, I guess I'm saying, who always loved to say something as false flag, crisis actors. Remember, maybe you do, remember the Boston marathon case. Remember that, the Boston Marathon? And people would say, hey, how come this woman looks like this woman from another event? And, that sort of thing. And the Zarnaev brothers, remember Flash Bump? I think Howie Carr called them Flash Bang and Speed Bump. Remember, that was a case, if you ever want to go back on that one, that was a beta test for complete police state fascist takedown. They took down the city of Boston because of two people. Shut it all down as a beta test. Just like a certain event involving a certain virus was a beta test to see how do we shut down the world. Let's see what we have to do. How far can we have mobilization units up and running? And how fast can we eliminate, just order, law? How fast will it take to have emergency orders, emergency laws, executive orders? How fast will people comply? How fast can we implement social media? How can wearing a mask become au courant? Notice my terrible French. How it can be, give me a good beta test. Let me see a dry run. Let me see let me see how people resist. Years ago, there was this thing where people would always say, there could never be somebody landing some outer space travel because, reason why is very simple. Because people they'd be rioting in the streets. Nobody riots in the streets. Nobody cares about any of this stuff. Nobody. Let me also tell you, most people don't know anything about Charlie. They don't know anything about Tyler Robinson. They don't know anything about this. They know nothing about Iran. They think somehow that the United States, by the way, is somehow victorious, that we destroyed Iran. They have no military, no navy. They've been shuttered and scuttled and removed. It's like, that's not true. But you just tell them what they want to hear, and they say, okay, all right. It's the most incredible thing in the world. Well, same thing with Charlie. It'll just go away. Because this is going later on into political realms as well. Our dear friends, our dear friends from the UK and from Europe, I am shocked by Europe. It never ceases to amaze me. Europe was the only place where you could get in a car, drive 2 hours, and you need a passport. It was a different culture, a different language, a different monetary system, different everything, different history, night and day. From Italy to Switzerland, whatever the hell. I mean, just like, whoa. Italy and France. Italy, France, and the UK. What is this? Throw in Russia. In the US, we have United States, that's it. Oh, we had different variations within it, but we do not have this. Okay. And I thought that if ever there was a place that would fight any kind of globalism, any kind of homogenization, some destruction of cultural and traditional boundaries, I thought for sure it would never be the UK. Never. Because of your thousands of, anyway, that's where the EU came from. The EU was the first one. And where was this hatched? At a Bilderberg meeting. I forget what year it was. A Bilderberg meeting. Let's do it there. Let's try to take fragmented, seemingly unconnected countries, separated by language, culture, monetary systems, and let's reduce it into a union. The European Union, to consolidate. If we can do it there, we can do it anywhere. Let's do this. And it happened. From Brussels. Remember when the EU, of course you know this, when in Brussels they would come up with these rules about light bulbs or collecting rainwater. It's like, excuse me, who are you? You're in Brussels. What do you have to do with us? Well, we're the EU. And then they tried it in our country during the Bush administration. Remember Rick Perry, who was the governor of Texas? They did the Trans-Texas Corridor. They wanted to have the NAFTA superhighway from Mexico all the way to the U.S. up to Canada. A NAFTA with tolls that were going to be manned by some Spanish corporation. They were going to come up with the Amero. Lou Dobbs talked about this before anybody did. It just collapsed. But it happened in the EU. And I said, do you know what this means when you have a consolidation of power? You have a consolidation of power and a destruction of individuality, of individual personalities, of individual modular components. And they look at me like, what are you talking about? I said, they want to do this here. Okay. Then you had in the UK, Europe, but also the UK, we saw it elsewhere, was a complete and total saturation. I remember, what was it in Italy? The Somalis showing up on like cigarette boats, just like, what is this all about? I even heard, I don't know how true this was, the mafia Siciliana, or Italy, were not too crazy on that. Tommy Robinson, not perfect, not whatever, but speaking regarding people who were involved in grooming and doing all kinds of behaviors. I was watching one of the most miserable shows. When I saw watching, it was on my YouTube feed. Piers Morgan, who is a child, who is a mentally juvenescent twit. He is this simpleton who loves to have a bunch of people on to scream, and he takes this vacuous high ground. Well, I think that people should be able to speak to man. Oh, shut up. He's this, I don't know how he got anywhere because of that. Anyway, so he and these people are talking in different ways. And I'm asking my friends, I said, do you see what's happening here? Look at what's happening. Look at what's happening regarding King Charles. He wants CBDC, the central bank digital currency. Understand who these people are. David Icke would call them reptilian, and I'm not far from disagreeing. This is another world. And Americans look at me like, what are you talking about? I said, we don't have. They still think somehow Iran runs the Strait of Hormuz. How did they weren't before, they are now. Excuse me. How did we go to war with somebody and now they're more powerful than when before we started? Is anybody paying attention? No, because they live in a delusional world here. They watch Fox News and they think everything's great. It's like, what are you, nuts? Spend any amount of time today listening to the great Judge Napolitano, John Mearsheimer, Colonel McGregor, Larry Johnson, and just down the list. And you realize, oh my God, Scott Ritter. And you realize Gerald Salenti, others. What are people talking about? So I'm telling you, perhaps in this, I apologize, this meandering, desultory kind of a elliptical, whatever. But you understand the world is changing. And it's important for America to turn to our brothers and sisters in Europe, but up the UK in particular, and say, don't let what happened to them happen here. You've got people going to jail, being arrested for posting something. Freedom of speech. Ray McGovern, yes, excellent. Go down the list. Alistair Crook, Colonel Larry. You know what I'm talking about. You can't believe this, and you realize, my God. Nobody here in my country is even discussing this. They're not even remotely interested in this. Every week they make something about Putin. They hate him. He's sick. He's got cancer. He's got a tremor. He's looking bad. No, he's not. Yes, he is. No, he's not. This is the most. Information is the currency. Information is the currency of the 21st century. And I'm telling you something. And what really scares me, and I want you to be very, very careful of this. Listen to me very, very carefully. Look, there are terrible people, terrible speech. There's rudeness and discourtesy and a lot of crazy theories out there. But a crazy theory that does not manifest itself physically is just a theory. And that's a thought, and thoughts are to be protected. If I hear one more person say that my pointing out anything, have you been watching the Nick Kristof story regarding the New York Times case about Palestinian mistreatment? What did they call it? That's right, anti-Semitism. Not wrong, not, hey, Kristof, you're wrong. These claims are just wrong. Oh, no, he's anti-Semitic. That's the way we are today. I want you to understand what's happening. This is the most important thing in the world. And they're trying everything. They're trying to say that anti-Semitism, well, excuse me, I can give it a name. In my country, you can be anti-American, no problem. If I say something that's racist or homophobic or misogynistic or transphobic, according to whom? And if so, so what? Say whatever you want. I don't care. Say it. Somebody may listen to it and say, I don't think that's anti-Semitic. I don't think that's racist. Well, I do. Well, who decides? Who is the arbiter? This is a very scary world we're getting, and I don't want to go the way of the UK. With all due respect to our UK brothers and sisters, I do not want to do this. We don't protect free speech enough. We don't. Because we came up with this stuff about disinformation, misinformation, data information, all of that nonsense during the very viral mania period. We got after words like misinformation. So what about misinformation? I know people who say things all the time that are wrong about history, about law, about this. What am I supposed to do? Is that misinformation? Well, yeah, but that doesn't count. We're in the fight for our lives, my friend, the fight for our lives. And I'm going to live in a world where if I don't like what you say, I don't listen to you. Say whatever you want. I don't care. Just don't hurt anybody. Don't hurt anybody and don't incite anybody. And incitement means, using the Brandenburg case, saying something that is reasonably and deliberately intended to invoke, to convey, to inspire immediate violence. Not to say something that's controversial or something that, no. You don't want to do something that inspires immediate consequential violence. That's it. I can't believe I'm even saying this. And there are people I know, I swear to God, I'm thinking to myself, they say, well, Iran's, they're crazy. Why is Iran crazy? Well, because you don't know if you've ever been there. I've never been there. This is a civilization of some of the most brilliant thousands of, 7,000, who knows? I believe either India and also Persia, where the development, it might have been Israel, of chess. And all of a sudden somebody says, well, they're crazy. That's it. In our country, whatever we don't like you, you're crazy. He's crazy or evil. Really? Why? Well, they just are. And the best part is, let me ask you this, to my friends, to my great Irish friends, there was a time during the Troubles when people did not consider the IRA or the provisional IRA or anything to be a terrorist organization. There were some Republicans who believed that Ulster and groups were terrorists, but everybody thought that the other group was a terror. They said, no, this is military. This is military. They considered themselves to be, that the IRA was an army, that it was a military means to I'm not arguing whether it's correct or not, but it's easy for us to say they're terrorists. They say, no, but from our point of view. So when you talk to somebody what Hamas and Hezbollah is, I'm not asking you from an American point of view, what do you think? What do you think about people who perhaps might be either sympathetic to or what have you? Always understand. Let me ask you something. Were the Viet Cong, the Vietnamese, were the NVA, were they evil and terrorists? And no. Of course, people who were there at the time, American soldiers thought they were, but they weren't. It was in their country. You always have to understand how people think. Relativistic. What I've just described for you in the past, 10 minutes or so, you will never hear on cable news. You'll never hear on Fox News. You'll never hear any kind of news. We love to fool you with the news. Hey, here's the news. Don't question it. I've got a guy with a deep voice and ding 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 ding. Dateline Cucamonga. It's the news. Trust the news. Don't you listen to the news? That's the news. That's what happened. Really? That's not what I heard. Well, it's not news. Whose news? My news, damn it. We love this thing. We live in this apodictic, absolute, right or wrong, left or right, Manichaean, good guy, bad guy. This simplicity. It's the most dangerous thing I've ever seen in my life. And we're not going to let that happen. And that's why it's such a pleasure to talk to people and to see people from all over the world, because your insight, Americans have to hear it. Listen to somebody. We're all the same. We are the same. Forget the language. I don't care what it is. We might have different styles of music or something. You know what I'm talking about. All babies are the same. Go to any place, any baby, with the exception of maybe something with overtly racial characteristics. They're the baby. They say this. They're all beautiful and cute, and they're the same. And there's this homogeneity that really bothers people. I think it does. We're the same. We love to create artificial demarcation in terms of class or wealth or pedigree or provenance or education or looks. We always love to categorize gender, BMI, age, religious affiliation, political affiliation, where do you live, what? No. It's almost like, who was it? Alan, the wonderful British philosopher. He said, it's like somebody who believes everything is in terms of inches. Like, well, this is 12 inches, this is 13 inches, this is 4 inches, this is 2 inches, 3 inches. And then one day they ran out of inches. And this artificial means by which they measured something was not there. Alan Watts, thank you. It was never there. The means by which we artificially created this measurement, this metric, wasn't there anymore. So does that mean that the thing's not there anymore? No. If all of a sudden they suspended the metric system, and I guess the American system, does that mean that size and width and length, or length, as people say, or height, as people say, do you think they don't exist anymore? No. We artificially create levels of demarcation, levels of difference, and they don't mean anything. And that's why we're on to something. And that's why speaking to you is such a bloody honor. And I mean that sincerely. Thank you, dear friends. Thank you, dear friends. One more time, check out. This is Luigi Mangione case. Watch it because you'll learn a little bit more about some of our criminal procedure. In any event, I thank you. Thank you so much. Please thank you also for following Mrs. L, my beloved, at Lynn's Warriors. Thank you. We did a piece the other day. There's so much going on. You cannot believe it. So follow her at Lynn's Warriors on YouTube. Thank you for that. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell so you're notified of live streams and new videos. And thank you. And guess what? We're going to be doing Noon Daily. And I am honored to have such exalted humanity, such as yourself here. And I thank you for that. All right, my friends, have a great and glorious day. We're going to be doing one locally tonight, evening time. I don't know. I got to figure out what time. I got to do some business later. I'll try to find something that is equally beneficial. In any event, dear friends, have a great and a glorious day. Thank you so very much. Until then, remember, the monkey's dead. The show's over. Sue ya. Dad.